Hi guys, this is for everybody who's using a Picarro 2130i water isotope analyzer and who intends to use it with seawater, saltwater samples, because we had problems with the syringe not being happy about the salt water because we had salt crystals building up behind the seal of the plunger, and then you basically destroy the seal and they just don't last very long. And we did a little trick, and I had some requests to maybe explain what we did, and here's a video to show exactly that. So this is our Picarro. This is the Autosampler, which is a well, ours is still called ALS. It's actually now Modu Vision. That's the new name of the company. And first thing you see is that of the Autosampler arm, we have taken off the lid, or we cut the lid here so we can access the syringe better. I will write you in an email why we put half of it back. So, and what we do is we have the syringe here, and then just with cable binder, with zip ties, we put the normal vial on top of it, so it sits right here below it. And then this has 3 access points. One is a sponge, which is a normal lab sponge. This is pink thing. And then there's a little tube there. It's basically to let the air out. And then there's a second tube, which I can use to fill the vial. So at the moment it's dry, and the sponge is dry. And then I have a second vial sitting here on the side of the arm, which basically sits in a syringe that I screwed into the arm. Basically I used the holes that are there to put the lid on. And then here sits the vial, it just sits in here, and then here I have a lure lock connector, and this sticks in there so I can refill it. So now I attach the syringe with water to this one, and I just push it into the big vial. So I'm filling up the big vial, and then because I put pressure on the big vial with the syringe and the water, it basically fills up the little one. Here it is. So you see the little one filling up, and do you see it? Like this. It doesn't really fill too well because the sponge sucks up the water. It takes a bit. So now it's filling up, and this way I'm filling up this thing. Okay, that's it. So now little vial is full, and I'm actually I'm putting some water on it with I just make it wet the upper part of the sponge, because for the time being it takes some time until the water goes through the seal and goes up. Okay. So now when I put the syringe in the change syringe position, then the plunger goes up, and then you can see it a bit more clearly. So this is a bit dirty now, because it has been sitting there for some time. And so ideally how it works is that every time the syringe goes into the sampling position, it goes a bit down, and then there should be a little bit of water refilling into the little vial. You have to fiddle around with the diameter of that tube. That's 0.3 millimeters at the moment. Could be a bit bigger, and then it also depends on how high this one sits. But normally, like in the sleep position of the Autosampler, in the home position, it wouldn't refill much, because otherwise it would overflow. Okay, and then because you did it like this. So now I know that I will disassemble now, so you can see the thing. So here I have a little connection that I can open, and I open this thing that holds the end of the plunger, then I open that thing. But for this especially, it's good to take the lid off because it's horrible to move this thing when you cannot really access it. So once you've done this and you've done this, then you can take the syringe out. The whole thing comes out. Okay. And now this is how it looks when I took it out. And that's all. So I basically used like a normal cleaning sponge that you have in the sink. And then I used a piece of it. That's something like the piece I did. So this part sits in the vial, and the plunger goes through here. You just pinch a hole up here, and then that's where the plunger goes through. And this little edge is there so it stays in the vial. And then I force the upper part, I force it through the seal of the vial. And then I put the other, like the little pieces of tube, also go through the holes in the seal. And that's it. So that's the seal now. I made a hole with the tweezers, and then I keep it open a bit with the tweezers so I can stick the thing in. That's about it. So I just cut it a bit smaller so it fits nicely and it matches more or less the length of the vial, like that. Now I stuck it in the vial and this should be working already. Only thing you have to make sure this is long enough so you have enough length. Where's my here? So it's long enough so it fits all the way up to the plunger. Then it shouldn't be too long. Well, it doesn't matter. It has to be long enough mainly. It shouldn't be too long because the more length you have, the more evaporation do you have. So you lose your water again. You might put some tube or something on top or maybe some just plastic foil or something to reduce the evaporation on this part, because you only want it wet on the top. So in order to reinstall the syringe, it has to go through this hole and it has to fit through the lower hole, which is a bit tricky. You have to bend the needle a bit to do it, but you get used to it. And then, yeah, the body slides in here, and then you can adjust the vial so it just sits just below it, so it's not blocking it. And then the top of the plunger has to go all the way in here. And then do not forget to fix this, which is easy when the lid is off, and it's a bit tricky if it's not. I don't know who thought of that. And then once this is fixed, you fix the head of the plunger. Like this thing, you fix it in here. Click. This snaps in. Basically stays in one position, and it's good to leave it like loose and then let it snap into its position. And this, like this, it's properly installed. This should work now. You could try the needle down here and see if it's not stuck, if it's not sitting on the thing, but it's moving a bit. That's it. So now I reattach the refill tube, and after you did that, you would have to force a bit of water in and out of the little vial by putting a syringe here and just pumping a bit, because otherwise the tube, like the refill tube, would have some air and then it doesn't refill anymore. This needs to be full of water, so there's an Archimedean connection, so this automatically refills. This is now the preparation run. So get some water from one vial, it discards it, but now you can see how the sponge is always on top of it. So it gets it from the clean vial, which is the front one. And yeah, what you might see is that in our Autosampler we have swapped the rinsing station and the sample station. And we did that because we have that oven here, and the oven heats to 110 degrees. And we didn't like the fact that the samples were right next to the oven. So we put the rinsing station in the middle, which is not the standard setup. And we put, as you see here, we put some aluminum foil to keep the heat that comes here from the vents. There's some ventilators in there, so the heat goes somewhere, but not directly. The way it's originally is that the samples sit here and they get the heat directly from this oven, which is a bit stupid. So in order to fill the syringe completely with water, what I do is I take a normal pipette with a 100 microliter tip, and I force the water into the syringe until it's dripping from the needle. Like here you wait a bit, and then ideally it would be dripping from the needle, and the end it does. I don't know if you can see anything, probably don't. And then take it off, and I leave a bit of water on top before I put the plunger in. And this way you can be sure that the syringe is completely filled with water, which is good to avoid having problems with getting exactly the right amount of water if there's still sitting a bit of air on top of it, which is pretty much the case all the time if you don't do that.